All right, everybody, welcome to Beyond the Mad. It is April 25th, 2022. It is a Monday, so we are going to be looking at Monday Night Raw. Tonight we had a good episode, I thought. A lot happened, which gives us a lot to talk about, gives the fans a lot to look forward to. We had some returns tonight. Asuka, Becky Lynch, Mustafa Ali, as well as a little cameo by Mayor Kane. Before we get into Monday Night Raw, I'm going to talk about a couple different news items that came up this week and I think are pretty important to get into before we get to Raw. So we'll go over those things real quick and then we'll get into Raw. All right, guys, thanks for joining me wherever you may be tonight. We're going to start off with a couple of interviews that dropped today. Ryan Satin on the Out of Character podcast did a couple interviews over WrestleMania weekend that are dropping weekly here, one of which was Omos. That one dropped today. I was able to listen to it in its entirety. Good listen there. Not going to go over the whole thing, but it really sort of endeared me to Omos a little bit more than I already was. This guy has gone through a lot of health conditions. He's had gigantism, Cushing's disease, other ailments that he's had to overcome in his life. Always been a wrestling fan, he says. Grew up in Nigeria. Eventually, he ended up becoming a basketball player once everybody saw how tall he was. Also played soccer. He said that the most exciting thing about being in the States once he moved here was the fact that they had room service and food delivery. He said that was not something he was used to in Nigeria. He said having a pizza delivered to him in a box was one of the most amazing things he's ever seen. He's also claimed that he was in training with Ridge Holland. He touted WWE's training as a godsend to him. Now, for me, if he was training with Ridge Holland, that's a little bit scary because I don't know if Ridge Holland's ever going to get over. I mean, you could drive that guy to the top of a mountain and throw him off it. I still don't know if he'll get over. But Omos himself here, showing a little bit of what he is, where he came from. I liked it. Helped me appreciate him a little bit more than I already do, which honestly isn't very much. So any appreciation they can give me for Omos is definitely good on them to do. Now, I don't view Omos in the same way that I view somebody like Veer, but I also don't view him the same way I view somebody like Gunther. I view Gunther as a much more finished product and a much more complete in-ring performer than Omos is. Now, we saw Omos tonight in his arm wrestling competition with Bobby Lashley. That feud really seems to be MVP and Lashley more than it is actually between Bobby Lashley and Omos, but we'll get to that later. We've also found news from the WWE that the unification of the two brands is not going to happen, but if they did have unification of the brands, I'll tell you that we'd had better shows with more stars on each show. They would be able to book these shows and make them make a lot more sense. We wouldn't have to wait an entire week from Monday to Monday for a feud to play out. They'd be able to address it on Friday. They'd be able to limit the amount of recap packages because it would keep things fresh, having things going from Monday to Friday to Monday to Friday. All these feuds could keep going. We wouldn't need to have to be reminded every single week about things that happened last week, or even worse, them forget to book something that happened 3 weeks ago, and now we have to see the resolution of something that happened 3 weeks ago and be reminded about why the hell the match we're seeing is even happening. They wouldn't need to do this if everything was booked the way it should be, and they used the 3 hours on Monday, the 2 hours on SmackDown to book all of their superstars and multiple different feuds, keep them going. we wouldn't forget about shit that happens because they're trying to cram so much into 2 hours, so much into 3 hours with all the commercials and packages and highlights and all that bullshit that we really don't need to see that cuts into the performance time in the ring. That's one of the reasons why I advocate everybody should go to house shows, because they are more fun to be at than Raw or SmackDown. I mean, it's definitely great to be a part of a television taping, but at the end of the day, you have to deal with the breaks. You have to deal with people standing in the ring and doing nothing while a commercial break's going on. You have to deal with not being able to hear anything that they show on the fucking Jumbotron. And it's just a much better experience for the house at a house show. But back to the ranking systems real quick. I really think that it would work if they figured out a way to do it. I don't trust WWE to book it correctly, but if they did it, it would work. Like I said, better to fill 5 total hours with more stars, more matches, and segments that actually mean something than video packages. It would keep everything moving, remove the need to remind us about shit that happened 3 weeks ago, to tell us why we should care about whatever match is happening. I think it would just flow a lot better if they had a ranking system and they didn't have split brands, but WWE has said they're going to keep the brand split as it is. They may have traveling champions. Now, to me, they don't need 2 women's titles. They don't need 2 tag titles. They don't need 2 top heavyweight champions. The U.S. and the Intercontinental titles should stay as they are because of the lineage, but they need to get rid of the Universal title and keep the WWE Heavyweight Championship as it is, and that should be the top championship, and the champion should travel back and forth. If they want to have another top championship for people to feud over, that's fine. A lot of people have that argument, but to me, there's no need for it, at least right now. Triple H had an interview with The Athletic, talked about a lot of different things, talked about his health issues and where NXT is going these days. He said in his interview that WWE likes college guys now. They don't like to bring in the indie talent they used to bring in. That's sort of AEW's thing now. AEW is almost like a developmental for WWE in certain ways, but they are a successful operation in their own right, doing what they do. But according to Triple H, WWE is okay with losing certain superstars at certain times and knows that eventually they may get that superstar back or they may not. But the overriding point is that NXT is not a main roster production. It's supposed to be a wrestling school, and that's what WWE has turned it into. Whether or not that's something that Triple H wanted it to be or whether it is not, that is what it is now. Triple H used to be able to scout all the indie talent, bring them in. Now WWE is interested in building these college stars into their own with the NIL deals. This takes away Triple H's ability to be creative and get behind these people, and instead he just takes orders directly from Vince and Bruce and whoever the hell else is involved in the creative process, and that damages the creativity of the NXT brand. And it's now totally different from what it was before, for better or worse. WWE likes to cut wrestlers who they don't think are going to fit the brand that they want them to be. They like to bring people in that they can mold from day one. If you think of it this way, they like to bring in the college kids because they're impressionable. They don't have a background in pro wrestling yet, and they can teach them pro wrestling the way that they want them to do it. On the flip side of that, if you bring in an indie talent, you may have to untrain them on almost everything they know just to teach them the WWE style of professional wrestling, which is a little bit different than other styles. Obviously, there's pluses and minuses to both sides of it. You know, when you think about it, Triple H is responsible for a lot of guys that are in the WWE today that we all are fans of. People like Roman Reigns, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, Asuka, Bayley, Flair, Lynch, Bianca Belair, all people from NXT. In fact, we never viewed women's wrestling the way that we do now until Triple H made the breakthrough in NXT with the event where he had the all-women's main event with the 4 horsewomen. Women's wrestling and all that movement was all driven by Triple H and his work, and we wouldn't have this world-class crop of top women wrestlers in the WWE right now, if not for that movement. So that's a big part of what Triple H did, a big part of what I appreciate him and everybody should appreciate him for, and probably one of the biggest things that he's done outside of the ring, in addition to all the great things he did in his illustrious in-ring career. Now, he goes on to say that NXT is basically a wrestling school for the WWE now, to teach people how to compete the way that they want them on their roster. So NXT down there is a controlled environment. It's a controlled crowd, same crowd almost every week. They're told who to cheer for, who to not cheer for. It's a lot different than the main roster. So a lot of guys come up to the main roster and fans are disappointed because they see these guys on TV 2 hours per week and they're doing their characters, doing well down there. And then they get brought up to the main roster and everybody's like, what the hell? How come they're not doing the same thing they were doing down there? And it's a lot like when you have a minor league hockey team and you have somebody killing it at the minor league level and they bring them up and they're not quite ready to do what you need to do at the NHL level. And so it's a slow burn to get him going. Another good example would be a baseball pinch hitter in the minor leagues, batting .400 with very high slugging percentage. You bring him up to the major leagues, you put him in full time at cleanup, and you get diminishing returns because he's getting more at bats against better pitchers. So a lot of that is sort of how WWE views NXT. They view it as their minor league. That isn't how they always have, and that's why guys like Tommaso Ciampa and LA Knight that have been there for a while are moving up now quicker. But you have to remember that what they were down there is totally different in WWE's eyes, at least, to what they are now. It pisses fans off. It confuses the hell out of us. And part of the problem is they really shouldn't be advertising this as a 2-hour show that's equal to any other wrestling show on TV. They should make it clear that it's a wrestling school so that the fans' expectations are right. We're always going to think that these NXT guys should be treated a certain way when they're brought up if we're not conditioned to know that this is a developmental system and that they're not going to be coming up the same exact way that they were coming up in NXT. Now, Triple H also stated that the pandemic really hurt NXT and hurt WWE's ability to bring people in. If you think about it, they weren't able to bring people in and train them for about 2 years. So they continued to cut people and not really get to bring new people in. That also affected everything there is to do with WWE. Even after they were able to travel again, they had limited people that could get into certain venues, travel restrictions, all kinds of bullshit they had to deal with. So that definitely hurt the product and definitely hurt the development down there at NXT. And that's something that a lot of people don't really consider most of the time. So in a nutshell, Triple H is basically saying that WWE would rather deal with young talent from the door so that way they can groom them into what they want them to be. While guys that are a little bit older are a little bit harder for them to deal with and are going to push back a little bit. If they start early with people, then they can copyright everything and get all the intellectual property that they want to have and build them the way they want to be without any pushback. He says that if you have all these great college athletes that may not make it as professional football players or hockey players or baseball players, they may have the charisma to make it in the WWE, and so that's what they're looking for in the NIL program. He also said he's not afraid for people to leave WWE and eventually come back to what he called the biggest show in the world. And that's basically how it played out with Cody Rhodes. Some people look at it the other way, and they think that AEW built him up, and now WWE's using AEW's biggest star. But the fact is, AEW could never give WWE what Cody Rhodes wanted and what he wants. They could never give him that big WrestleMania moment. They can never give him the WWE title that he's looking for. So in my eyes, it's actually a star who left WWE, used AEW to build himself up, and then WWE got him back when he was big. And that may happen with other people. It may not. There shouldn't be a war between the two companies and the two fan bases. I am a fan of both promotions. I cover WWE. I don't cover AEW, so I don't talk about it as much, but I have all the appreciation in the world for the product. NXT never should have been something that was competing with AEW. AEW Dynamite is the top product for that brand. NXT is a developmental product. They shouldn't have been on the same day, and it was something that was prearranged for WWE to take NXT and move it to Tuesday. It wasn't something that they decided after the fact when they realized that they were getting beat in the ratings. It's so they could put their people on Tuesday to fit the schedule that they were working. Now, to me, I don't really care where any talent comes from as long as they're getting the time they deserve and they're doing a good job. If there's good talent in WWE that isn't getting what they deserve, I'm happy to see them go to AEW and get the creativity and get the action and screen time that they've worked for. One of the big misconceptions is when they bring people up to the main roster, like Butch, like Madcap Moss, even Rick Boogs, and they give them these silly gimmicks. One of the reasons they do this when they bring them up is because if they portray themselves initially this way and they eventually do make it as a star, as they do believe they should, then they can show how successful this person was and how far they evolved into their new character and how far they really came on their main roster, and they can stake claim and take credit for all of that. And that's all part of it with WWE. So anyway, we'll move on from the NXT Triple H discussion. We also knew over the weekend that Bret Hart signed a lucrative Legends deal with the WWE. I thought it was a pretty smart thing for Bret Hart to do. Maybe we'll see him on TV, but most likely we will not. This is something that WWE did to protect their intellectual property with him, and quite frankly, a smart move by Bret Hart, because he is very protective of his legacy, and should he have done anything on AEW TV, he would no longer be associated with everything he did in his career at WWE, which is basically everything he's ever done and everything he cares about. He really cares about what he's done, and he's not going to tarnish that. That's why we're not going to see him go back into the ring and do something stupid. You know, I heard some idiot talking today, and I'm not going to name who it is, but Bret Hart, he thinks, is going to return, manage Cody Rhodes, then turn on him, manage Seth Rollins all throughout the summer. I mean, come on, man. This is some freaking nonsense. This guy must be smoking dust. That's not happening. Maybe some on-screen stuff will eventually happen with Bret Hart, but managing Seth Rollins, I mean, give me a break. Bret gives a damn enough about his legacy not to do something like that. Maybe he'll manage FTR if they ever come back to WWE, but they are not coming back to WWE anytime soon. They don't want to. They've said that. A lot of people are speculating about that. It's not happening anytime soon, I could tell you that. Never say never, and maybe someday, but right now, FTR is firmly in the grasp of AEW, and that's fine. Now, let's think about this. WWE right now is just coming off a nice WrestleMania, right? I think we can all agree on that one. It was a good time. Backlash is an arena pay-per-view, as is Hell in a Cell in June. They're going to build smaller feuds now and heat different guys up because the live events that are after Hell in a Cell and Backlash are all big stadium pay-per-views. We have 4 in a row: Money in the Bank, SummerSlam, UK, and Saudi Arabia. We need good feuds down the line, and that's why we need them to be building up as many feuds as they can, as many characters as they can. So that's why I'm happy to see more characters getting introduced. I'm happy a lot happened tonight on Raw. We're sort of getting somewhere with a lot of different things. They took 3 different feuds and put them in the main event as to allow more time for other things to develop. And I thought it was a good episode tonight. So all the way up until Survivor Series, we have all stadium shows. So they need to have good, big main events for that. Lashley needs to be one. Cody needs to be one. McIntyre's probably going to be another one in the UK. I have no idea what the hell they'll do in Saudi. And then we have Survivor Series, which is the next pay-per-view after the 4 stadium shows. And that's where we're expecting The Rock to return. You heard it here first, to set up his feud with Roman Reigns for WrestleMania. Like I say, they have to build characters that will fill these big shows because there's 60,000 capacity stadiums. They almost have to be WrestleMania quality matches, WrestleMania quality cards, WrestleMania quality builds to these feuds. I'm banking on the fact that they have a plan for this and that they see this coming. and we have a lot of good stuff to look forward to. Maybe we have to endure some bullshit for this period where we have the arena pay-per-views, but a more enticing product through a long period of time for those 4 stadium shows would be definitely something I'm in favor of and be worth getting through a little bit of nonsense for them to figure it out. We'll have to see. Regardless, again, it would be nice to see if this time's enjoyable on the way to one where we know that a lot of big things are going to happen just because we have Money in the Bank and SummerSlam, and they're going to plan something big for that. So just consider the fact that they have these stadium shows coming up and how much stuff they have to develop to get to the point where those stadium shows are going to even be worth putting in a stadium. Now, before I get into Raw, the last thing I wanted to say when I was talking about Triple H, which slipped my mind, is that they compare this to the minor leagues. And to me, it's not the minor leagues. There's no minor leagues in professional wrestling. I mean, for me, I have a favorite baseball team and a favorite hockey team. I couldn't tell you who the hell is on their minor league roster. And in this case, we have NXT, and we all know who the minor league guys are if this is supposed to be a minor league. So they can't really use that analogy in the way that they want to. But I do understand where they're coming from, and I understand why guys who come up aren't immediately pushed to the top. So anyway, Monday Night Raw tonight, guys. We were looking at a pretty good card. We knew what we had tonight. We had an arm wrestling competition between Omos and Lashley. We also had ourselves the return of Asuka and Becky Lynch. We had ourselves Mayor Glenn Jacobs making a cameo. Veer had himself another squash match. Finn Balor took on Damian Priest. Mustafa Ali returned finally. And the Raw Women's title match between Bianca Belair and Sonya Deville also went down. A lot of stuff happened tonight. A lot of stuff to progress some storylines. A lot of stuff to start some. Had a 24/7 segment that was totally terrible, but that's okay. I didn't really pay too much attention to it. But we'll get right into it right now. Live from Knoxville, Tennessee, we had Monday Night Raw. Starting off the show, we had Randy Orton's 20th anniversary celebration. This started with Riddle introducing us to Raw with a boatload of superstars ringside to celebrate Orton's 20 years with the WWE. Riddle immediately throws to a video package for Randy Orton. WWE does an outstanding job with their video package. They really did Orton an honor here. We all know the roller coaster that has been his career, and they made him look like a true star and really appreciated him here. Ultimately, he's a bona fide superstar who carried us through several decades and is continuing to give back to the business and working with Riddle and being a part of the hottest act in the company right now. His maturity over the last 10 years is even more impressive than his longevity. I can see him here for another 10 years and maybe a couple title runs before it's all said and done. I would like to see him add the Unified Tag Championship to his legacy, though. So, Riddle then brings in Randy Orton, the Apex Predator, his best friend. Randy Orton enters to a standing ovation. Randy, 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 the crowd chants. Orton comes out and says it's been an incredible journey with a lot of ups and downs, twists and turns. He hopes everybody isn't sick of him because he's not going anywhere anytime soon. 20 years goes by in a flash. He made relationships. He had some badass matches with Triple H, Undertaker, Mick Foley, Cena. He touted Foley and Triple H for helping develop him. He said he's having more fun right now than ever because of this guy, referring to Riddle. Says, "I love you, man." Then he gives him a hug. EdgeRkbro chants start to break out from the crowd at this point. And then Orton thanks the WWE Universe. He says there would not be an Apex Predator without all them, and he loves everybody. So it was good by the WWE to honor him in this way, to start the show off. Riddle then says he has a surprise for Orton. He says he has a man who wants to come out, who claims Randy is his mentor. Riddle then introduces Cody Rhodes to open up Raw for the 4th week in a row. So Cody Rhodes opens up this Raw as well. Rhodes comes out to a huge babyface ovation and goes to shake Randy Orton's hand. Rollins is then at ringside. He says, oh, this is not cute. Don't trust him, Randy. Cody isn't here to congratulate you. He's here to steal your spotlight just like he stole mine at WrestleMania. Let me let you in on something, Mr. Nightmare, he says to Cody. Not everything is about you. Tonight is about the 20 years of Randy Orton. 20 years in the past. Let's call a spade a spade. Your best years are behind you. He's speaking to Orton now. He says, you are not the past, present, or future, and neither are you, as he points to Cody. The next generation won't be inspired by a bro, a nightmare, or a viper, referring to Riddle, Cody, and Randy Orton. He said they will be inspired by Seth freaking Rollins. Then Ezekiel steps in. He says, as one of the newer stars, I should say congrats to Randy and introduce myself. Then he introduces himself as Ezekiel and refers to himself as Elias's younger brother. He says, I will never forget Elias and I watching you as children when we were younger. Kevin Owens jumps in and says, no, you're a liar. Don't let him lie, Randy. He talks and looks like Elias because he is Elias. Don't let him lie to you on this of all nights. He calls Ezekiel a pile of trash. And then he gets interrupted by the Usos. Jey Uso says, 20 years, Us. We was 15 when we watched you. What's your favorite moment, Us? And then the Usos say to each other, when we beat you at Backlash to unify our championships. Adam Pearce then comes out and says, before we tarnish this celebration, you will be in action in the form of the biggest match I can make. And so we have for the main event an 8-man tag team match. Seth, KO, and the Usos will take on Rhodes, Ezekiel, and EdgeRkbro for our main event tonight. I thought this was a really good way to open up the show, get all these stars out here, get them all booked in the main event. It's a good way to start it for the house, good way to end the show with all these guys out here. You got 3 established feuds. You got a lot of top guys, a lot of star power. You have them here. You have them in the last segment. You have the whole rest of the show to work on undercard and mid-card stories, which I thought was a really good idea here. It kept a lot of the stuff out of the rest of the show. Imagine if they just had Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins as the main event, or EdgeRkbro and Usos as the main event, and still had to deal with Cody Rhodes and Rollins throughout the show, and still had to deal with Owens and Ezekiel throughout the show. This way, they honored Randy Orton. They got their main event set up. They got their stars out there. I thought it was a smart, different way to start the show, and I'm all for it. Right after this, backstage, we see Bianca Belair talking to Mayor Kane prior to her title match with Sonya Deville. Sonya's already in the ring when we come back from the break. Bianca makes her entrance. Belair gets a big pop, obviously from her hometown crowd. Sonya then is sent ringside immediately when we start the match, then pulls Belair out, reverses a whip into the steps, and throws Sonya over the announce table. Sonya gets counted out immediately. The match ended in literally 2 minutes. Sonya gets on the mic, steals it from Mike Rome, who's trying to announce Bianca as the winner. She says the floor was wet and she needs to start over with no countouts. Belair then viciously attacks Sonya. She reverses a suplex, rams her into the apron, then into the barricade. Bianca gets Sonya, throws her into the timekeeper's area. Sonya grabs a chair, hits Bianca, gets disqualified. Sonya then says, no. Bianca used a foreign object first, which was her braid, so I used the chair. She then calls the match back on and calls it a no DQ and no countout match. Waves in Carmella and Zelina Vega. Now, hold on, I'm going to stop right there. I thought for damn sure that Carmella and Zelina Vega broke up right before Carmella went on her honeymoon. Why the hell are they back together for this? I'm not going to spend too much time pondering that, but it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. So anyway, she waves in Zelina and Carmella. Belair lays down in agony on the floor after the chair shots. Carmella is holding Belair back while Sonya beats her down with some punches. She ends up fighting out of this, does Belair. Hits a boot on Sonya, powers out of Carmella's hold, bounces a bunch of aggressive blows on Sonya. Zelina Vega comes into the ring, jumps on top of Belair's back, Sonya gets the upper hand here with a kick to the gut, and they go for a double team move. Whip her to the corner, then Zelina whips Sonya into her. Sonya tries to whip Zelina, who stutter steps and looks really sloppy here. Belair got rid of her over the top rope and then does the same to Carmella. Sends them both ringside, then counters a charging Sonya. Tries for a double underhook inverted powerbomb, but Sonya rolls through, sends her into the ring post, brings a chair into the ring, slams a DDT, plants Bianca's face right onto the chair, and covers her up, gets a near fall out of that. Zelina then comes in and sets up a chair into the corner. We could see this coming from a mile away. They tried to ram Bianca's head into this chair, but Bianca reverses it and rams Sonya's head into the chair, gets rid of Zelina Vega, and Carmella picks up Deville and hits the KOD for the 1-2-3 and regains her title, overcoming the odds of the authority figure abusing her power and having basically a 3-on-1 match. Two of the wrestlers who came in really aren't too formidable at all, and I'm not even sure why they're still together, but it was a great way to put Bianca over in her hometown. It made Sonya Deville look like an idiot to keep trying to make these changes and for Bianca to overcome them. Gave her some legit credibility, and really after this match, seeing the way the power was abused by Sonya Deville, they need to strip her of all her power. But I really liked the way that this went down. It gave Bianca some good hometown love, and it gave her title reign a little bit of a bump. Now, silly me, I'm sitting here thinking maybe Becky Lynch will be the one to face Bianca at Backlash. Maybe Asuka, since Asuka returned tonight. Maybe Rhea Ripley, because Rhea Ripley just turned heel. Well, Rhea Ripley, in a backstage segment tonight when she was explaining to herself how she came to the main roster and was the Raw Women's Champion pretty quickly, and now has been tied down by all these tag teams who have totally held her back. In the middle of this, she gets attacked by Liv Morgan, so it looks like we're going to have a Liv Morgan-Rhea Ripley feud before Rhea Ripley can pursue anything in the singles category. Becky Lynch, we have her return tonight wearing God knows what, but it was good to see her. She's doing her heel thing, looking totally distraught. She gets interrupted by Asuka. Becky starts talking about how she's had the title for 3 years, never went out of Raw without that title, and she feels like a different person without it. She doesn't recognize herself in the mirror without that title, and she's hit rock bottom. But the good thing is that at rock bottom, there's nowhere to go from up. She starts pontificating about how she's going to regain her title. She starts naming off all these people that she's more worthy than, but she doesn't name Asuka. And then the Empress of Tomorrow's music hits, and we get the return of Asuka, who dances out to the ring. She says, "You have to get past me," or something to that effect. Continues to dance, takes a little cheap shot at Becky Lynch as she's leaving the ring, and that's that. So Asuka made her return tonight. Obviously, there's going to be some sort of program with her and Becky Lynch. I have no idea what the hell it's going to be because they didn't lead on to anything, but have Asuka come out and interrupt Becky. Maybe Becky and Asuka get into a program that leads to a #1 contendership for Bianca Belair's title and leads to them gaining the opportunity for a match at Backlash. Or maybe they do an even better thing and throw them both against Belair in a triple threat match and have Belair go over, win that match, looking real strong coming out of Backlash. But also the bigger story of that match will be the fact that Becky and Asuka are feuding, and that feud will continue. Bianca will move on to somebody else after that. Getting back into the order of the show here, we see Edge backstage on his big chair. Now, before that, we see Zelina and Carmella arguing with Sonya Deville. Sonya saying, "What the hell are you guys doing? You didn't help me, so now I'm not going to give you guys a title shot." I didn't understand why the hell they should ever have a title shot because I didn't think they were a fucking tag team anymore, but whatever. Sonya says, "I'm still a boss," and slaps her in the face. Again, this was a complete waste of time. Now we have Edge in his big chair, real dark, talking about how he's on the top of his mountain of omnipotence, and then the people that get too close up there, he kicks them down. They said he and Priest don't like Balor and AJ, and tonight we will take care of Balor. They don't care about the things everybody else thinks about them. They don't care about the Tennessee Volunteers or the people who cheer for the mayor of Knox County, who was Kane, who was in the building that night. He's basically sitting here justifying his gimmick to everybody who has criticized it and compared it to The Undertaker. And he says he's better than all that and that people need to chew on that. People are booing the hell out of this. They're pumping in the boo noises. It's ridiculous. Now, where the hell is AJ Styles, says Edge. He's probably at home nursing the same shoulder injury that I injured before. Now, coming directly at AJ, he says, you think if you hit that forearm at WrestleMania, you might have won. And if you hit it at Backlash, you might win too. But now that I've injured it, I don't think you're going to hit me with any forearm, so you should just stay home with your children. Then Damian says, Finn, your guilt has been determined, and your judgment day has arrived. And then he laughs. Really heavy-handed here, trying to push back against all the criticism they've had for this. Maybe they're trying to pump the brakes with this whole faction thing a little bit and just keep it with Edge and Damian, because when they got it introduced, they were introduced as Judgment Day, which is finally a name for the little faction. We don't have to call them Brood 2.0 or Edge's Ministry. They're calling themselves Judgment Day, which is a pretty lame name considering the fact that there used to be a fucking pay-per-view called Judgment Day, and now Edge is judging people and calling his group Judgment Day. I really hope that nobody else gets involved in this. Tonight we saw something out of Tommaso Ciampa, which may indicate that he's doing something to turn heel and join this faction, but I'll get to that later. Next up, we got Veer Mahan in a squash match against a local talent. Takes this guy out real quick, knocks this guy down, hits him with his cervical clutch, puts him out in about 5 seconds, then takes him ringside, gets him on the announce table, puts the fucking clutch on him again, makes a bunch of weird noises. And I'll tell you what problem I have with this whole Veer thing. I'm not going to talk about what he did anymore. I'm not going to talk about who eventually is going to kill him. This is my problem. We see squash matches with Gunther, right? We see squash matches with other people all the time. We saw them with Omos. We are about to see one with Raquel. I've seen Veer wrestle for 6 months. I've seen Walter wrestle for a long time. At house shows, Veer has done the same fucking thing for 6 months. Just squash people no matter who it is. Can't do anything in the ring. Walter, we get a squash match on SmackDown, and he wrestles at house shows in 15-minute matches. He just had one with Mansoor on Saturday, and he looked like a regular wrestler in there. This moron Veer can't do anything, or at least they don't book him that way, and it's totally unappealing. It's a freaking 80s trope gimmick, and they're not going anywhere with it. I'd really like to see where they're going to go after he gets beat. What the fuck are they going to do? And why are they doing anything with somebody who has no other capabilities other than coming out there, acting like a freaking animal, and not releasing a submission hold on somebody? It's like I said, Raquel's going to squash somebody, but we know that she can wrestle. We've seen Gunther squash somebody. We've also seen him wrestle. We've seen Omos squash somebody. He probably can't wrestle, but he offers more than Veer does. At least he fucking talks. So that's all I got on Veer. I'm not going to say anything else about him. I'm getting sick and tired of seeing him squash people every week. It means nothing to me. It doesn't get me interested in him. And I don't think that people in attendance are very interested either, because that was the one time I saw many people exiting to the concourse to take a piss or get a beer or whatever. Next up, we have the arm wrestling competition between Bobby Lashley and Omos, who's with MVP. MVP getting what chance as he's trying to talk. He says, I've been looking forward to the day where Bobby Lashley is taken down by my new client, the Colossus Omos. Lashley is dominating to a normal person, but not to Omos. This is where I prove how bad Bobby needed me, says MVP. Omos says he's going to take his giant hand, wrap it around Bobby's fist, and rip off his hand by the digits. Lashley then enters the arena to a nice babyface reaction. They stare each other down in the ring. Then the ref brings up the podium for the arm wrestling match. Omos has the upper hand in the arm wrestling match early on. MVP sitting there talking shit, saying, come on, Omos, you got it, you got it, you got it. Talking shit to Lashley saying, "How do you feeling now, Bobby?" Then Bobby starts to get the upper hand. Bobby ends up winning. Omos then hits him from behind and wrings his neck on the rope, slams his face into the arm wrestling table, throws in some grunts for good measure. Then he hits a modified lariat and drops Bobby on the ground, leaves him laying. MVP tells him to keep crushing him, saying on the microphone, "How do you feel now, Bobby?" As Omos is taking the arm wrestling table and smashing it over Bobby, eventually throws it out of the ring. The way he threw it made it look like it was very light and not that punishing to Bobby. Bobby's laying down there, selling it very well. I have a little more patience for Omos giving the presentation now with MVP. He's a little more skilled than Veer does, obviously, so I give him a little bit more slack here. But they need to get this to a point where Omos can actually work an actual match and not do shit like this. It's nice to see them build a program in creative ways, but at the end of the day, they can't run from what happens in the ring, and that's what we need to see from Omos. We need to see him actually make progress in the ring, or all this is for naught. This segment in its own was short and sweet, so it was good. The right guy won the arm wrestling match, and the right guy retaliated and stood tall. Let's see what they have next. It's interesting that this is really a feud between MVP and Bobby, but Omos is basically MVP's surrogate. Next, we get the 24/7 segment. This was total bullshit. We had R-Truth earlier in the day explaining to Dana Brooke, Reggie, Tamina, and Tozawa that he's a certified relationship counselor. He said that he suspended all 24/7 rules for this mixed tag team match. This shit goes pretty quickly. It eventually ends with Tozawa hitting a splash off the top rope and pinning Reggie. Then Tozawa tries to roll Dana up. R-Truth breaks that up, and then he tries to pin Dana and count the fall for himself. She kicks out of that. She runs away, says, "I trusted you, what the hell?" And that's basically the end of the segment. Truth said that that was part of counseling. Now to me, this segment was terrible, a complete waste of time. If they're going to have this crap, let's actually see the title change hands sometimes. Otherwise, burn the fucking 24/7 belt. Burn the script for the segments. Find something else for these people to do that's actually worth caring about. And use these 15 minutes of TV that could go to something else on something else instead of this nonsense. Now, Finn Balor, we know he's been treated terribly. At least that's what it looks like. Has to take on Damian Priest tonight. Now, going into this match, I just wanted to see it finish after the bullshit we've seen from Priest and Edge. But I was also interested to see if they bury Balor even more than they already did, which, after watching this match, they pretty much did. My biggest fear is that they beat Balor down and sacrifice him and force him to join this stupid faction, which they are now calling Judgment Day. Priest enters with Edge at his side. The throne is sitting there. Edge is just sitting there. They play Edge music for a while. Then all of a sudden, Priest music comes on. It was really weird the way they did this entrance. They are announced as Judgment Day. Priest starts this match in control, throwing Balor corner to corner and beating him down. Balor counters with a stinger splash, lands some fists, sends Priest ringside with a lariat. Out at the ringside area, Damian gets in control, hits a big razor's edge onto the apron on Balor. Edge laughs at it. We go to a commercial. Back from the commercial, Priest is in control in the middle of the ring with a headlock. Then sends Finn Balor into the corner, drops him with a shoulder block. Finn then counters an Irish Rip and hits a dropkick and then a stomp. He works Priest into the corner, who then goes for a power slam. Balor counters that and hits a reverse DDT. Priest gets in control again with some knees and strikes, but Balor takes him down with a sling blade. Priest catches a charging Balor and looks for a choke bomb. Balor counters it, drops Priest down. Balor goes up for the coup de grace, but then Edge stands up out of his big chair. And this distracts Balor for some reason. He stares back up the entranceway. This allows Priest to grab Balor by the throat, hits the reckoning, gets a near fall, and then he finishes off Balor with a reverse Uranagi slam, a lot like the end of Days. And then he bows to Edge as he exits through the entranceway. They totally buried Finn Balor here again. He's basically a glorified enhancement talent. It was dumb as hell to have Balor get distracted just by seeing Edge stand up. It makes him look like an idiot. It's basically the same finish as we had at WrestleMania when AJ Styles got distracted just by seeing Damian Priest. In this case, though, I don't know why Balor was fucking surprised. Edge was sitting there the whole goddamn time. These matches either finish with somebody standing up and distracting somebody, or the fucking lights getting cut out and the match just ending out of nowhere. And every time the babyface looks like a freaking idiot. I wasn't at all impressed by Priest after this match. It's all just annoying. If it's just Damian Edge in this faction, that's fine, but I hope I don't see anybody else in it. I definitely see Balor and AJ teaming up against these two vampires. I just don't know when. You know, I said it before that I thought that Balor would be involved in helping AJ team up against these two clowns. To me, Balor deserved a U.S. title rematch this week, which I'd be fine with him losing again, but that would still accomplish cementing Theory as the champion and would give Balor something else to do besides job to Damian Priest, who, to me, has been a complete failure in the past couple of months. Next up, we see Rhea Ripley backstage. We already talked about the fact that Liv Morgan attacked her during her interview. We then saw Kevin Owens yelling at the Alpha Academy about last week's lie detector test. Gable tells Kevin Owens, "Don't insult my intelligence." Rollins then comes in. Gable tells Rollins to shush. He says this is an A and B conversation, so you need to see your way out of it. Owens then says, "I'm not a B, so you get the hell out of here." So he sends Alpha Academy away. Owens complains to Seth about the match last week. He fought for him. He says he should put Seth through a lie detector test to figure out who is a better friend. Then the Usos pop in. The Usos say, "We need to all be on the same page tonight because this isn't all about Randy Orton's 20th anniversary. We can't disappoint the tribal chief." Rollins says to KO, "We will do this on our own." And then Owens walks away, and Seth Rollins is like, "Hey, what the hell? Come on, man." And then we're done with that segment. We move on to the Miz TV with Theory. So Theory comes out here. And before I even get into this, we saw Mustafa Ali on the rundown. And I'm thinking to myself, wasn't he on SmackDown the last time we saw him? Why the hell was he on Raw? Now, similar to the Big E situation where he just went over to SmackDown because he wanted to tag with Kofi Kingston, we got no explanation for why he changed brands. But anyway, Theory comes out. Miz compares himself to Theory, says that he's like looking into a mirror. He said that he had to earn his name, though. Theory is saying he feels like he is on another level right now having this title. Has to tell the crowd to shut up when they start wanting him. Now, I'm really getting sick of the crowds doing the what chants all the time. Stone Cold Steve Austin needs to make an announcement to say, "Listen, guys, that's my thing. Stop fucking doing it." Because it's really disrespectful to everybody who's trying to speak heel or face. And it's a Stone Cold Steve Austin thing. He's not even in the damn business anymore. But anyway, Theory starts touting all Miz's accomplishments. Starts kissing his ass a little bit. He said that he wants to live up to those same standards and prove that he's the best investment that Mr. McMahon has ever made. He said he's going to take the title to new heights that have never been to before. As the youngest champion, he wants to be remembered as the U.S. champion, given the long lineage that it has. Miz then offers the advice that everyone will become jealous of him as the champion. Miz saying that he himself has been there before as a handsome young trendsetter holding a championship. He then says everyone needs to earn the right to face Theory in that ring and nobody can just demand a title match. Then we get interrupted by Mustafa Ali for his return. Ali gets a nice babyface reaction coming in. Miz asks him, "You still work here?" Theory says, "Aren't you the guy who took his ball and went home?" Miz then says, "You're Mufasa, Mustafa Ali's little brother." I didn't think that joke was funny at all. Ali then says, "Why are you telling jokes? If I want to laugh, I'll just watch you wrestle. Let's get to business. I'm back here on Monday Night Raw because Adam Pearce and I were discussing some matters. But when I heard Theory was on Miz TV, I had to come out because I was hoping Theory would announce he was holding an open challenge and I was hoping I could take it. So how about it, Theory? Let's have a match right here tonight." Theory then says, "Let me think about it." No. Ali says, "I'm not surprised. Aren't you McMahon's protege? Are you all biceps and no balls? You run your mouth and then you run away from a fight just like The Miz." Theory then says, do you know who you're talking to? This is a future Hall of Famer here. Miz then says, you're trying to use my name to get notoriety. I'd love to wrestle you, but I don't make matches. Theory's sitting there looking at his cell phone. He then says, okay, I just texted Mr. McMahon, and he said you got a match, Miz. Miz is a little pissed off at first, but Theory says, hey, you wanted a match. That's what you asked for, right? So Miz says, okay. Turns to Ali and says, after this match, you're going to wish that you got your walking papers. Ali then hits him with the mic, and we're getting ready for the next segment, which is Mustafa Ali versus The Miz. So right before the match, we get a shot backstage of Kane talking to Randy Orton, sharing some laughs. Then the match starts with a tie-up, some chain wrestling. Miz has an arm lock on early. Ali tries to fight out, but eats a blow to the face. Miz takes control with an innovative headlock here. I'm using innovative very sarcastically. Ali counters that headlock into a nice headlock of his own. Miz then sends him to the corner and charges, but Ali does a flip to avoid it. Miz then hits him with a big boot. Then, rebounding off the ropes, applies another creative rear chin lock. Mid-ring, slows things down. Ali fights back and lands some chops, but Miz nails him with a running knee and another boot for 2. Miz then hits some chops in the corner on Ali. Ali counters and lands some chops of his own. Miz then whips him into the turnbuckle so hard it knocks him down. Miz then mounts up for some punches. This looked like a complete squash of Ali at this point. Miz is in control now. He continues to hit big kicks to the chest, basically yes kicks here. Miz goes for a pose, but gets rained with boos. Goes for another yes kick and whiffs because when he was posing, Ali got a little bit of time there. Ali nails him with a Pele kick and then a spinning heel kick, followed by a flying crossbody. Ducks a corner attack by The Miz and transitions right into a swinging neck breaker for 2. Miz fights back and nails him with a knee to the face. Ali then went for an O'Connor roll, but Miz countered that and planted him with a DDT for a near fall. Miz heads up to the top rope. Ali follows him up there. Miz throws him down. Goes in to lock the figure 4 on the floor, but Ali rolls through that and picks up the win with a roll-up pin. 1, 2, 3. Graves putting over Miz as not being ready for this match. Mustafa leaves the ring, and as soon as he gets up near the entranceway, Tommaso Ciampa takes him out. Rhea is then shown backstage. Now, I don't know what this shit is with Tommaso Ciampa wiping him out after the match. This match was booked in such a way to make Mustafa Ali look like crap, but he ended up winning the match. Like I said, when they had Cody Rhodes with The Miz or anybody with The Miz is a great guy to put somebody with who you want to make sure the fans get behind. Nobody's going to get behind The Miz automatically. And when you put anybody in the ring with him, his opposition is the baby face. So it's a good way to get the crowd behind him. Good reintroduction to TV for Ali. I hope they have something planned for him good. They kind of squashed him in this match even though he won. And then he wins the match and gets smashed by Tommaso Ciampa as soon as he's leaving the freaking arena. I think that that's a heel turn by Tommaso Ciampa. I hope it's not a heel turn in the form of Tommaso Ciampa is going to become a vampire and join Edge. But we'll have to see how that plays out. And now finally we can get to our main event. We had Rollins, Owens, and the Usos taking on Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, Riddle, and Ezekiel. Before the match, Kevin Patrick was backstage asking Omos and MVP how it felt to lose the arm wrestling contest to Bobby Lashley. MVP was pretty funny here. He said, listen, man, with zero due respect, that wasn't about brawn. It was about brains. And Omos has now officially challenged Lashley to a match at Backlash. Omos then says, as well as he can, I can't really understand the damn thing he was saying, but he said something to the effect that he's not going to have much left of Lashley once he gets done with him. So we got a Backlash match between Lashley and Omos. I think we all saw that coming. Now, when this match starts here, bell hasn't even rung yet, and Ezekiel starts fighting everybody. The faces get the better of the heels, get rid of everybody out of the ring. We go to a commercial before the fucking match even starts. Then we get back from the commercial. Ezekiel and Jimmy are starting out. Zeke hits a knee, goes for a backslide, and Jimmy escapes, but that doesn't stop him from hitting a nice, big, stalling, swinging neck breaker. Now he's in control as he work over Jimmy's. He's got Riddle tagged in now. Riddle hits a knee, then a snapmare. He tags in Orton. They hit a nice assisted senton. Orton kicks Jimmy in the corner. Cody tags in. Cody nails a big inverted suplex. Seth then gets in a cheap shot on Cody Rhodes. Cody then does the fall down your back and slap Jimmy in the face thing like Goldust used to do. Jay then hits a blind tag on Jimmy, nails a pop-up Samoan drop. He and Cody trade some blows. Jay gets the better of the exchange, then tags Jimmy back in. They got Cody's legs split there. Then he wrings his neck on the second rope. Cody is now isolated in the heel corner, and the heels double team him. They stinger splash him. Rollins tags himself into the match. Cody sells in the corner for a minute. Rollins goes for a stinger splash, but Cody dodges it and sends Rollins crashing into the turnbuckle. Cody looks for a tag, but Rollins takes out Orton. Ezekiel tags in again and gets in control of Rollins, hits a spine buster for 2. Rollins then escapes a big military press, but Riddle is able to tag in, hits an exploder suplex, goes for a senton, but Rollins gets his knees up. Riddle tries to go up top, but he is stalled by the Usos while the ref is distracted by Orton. Rollins climbs up, grabs Riddle from behind, hits a really beautiful, devastating-looking inverted superplex. Both men go down. We go into a commercial break. We got a double down here. Now, why the fuck are there 2 commercial breaks in a 20-minute main event? Take the commercial breaks at another time, earlier in the hour, somewhere else during the show, during the 24/7 shit, during the Edge bullshit. Do it at a different time. Why the fuck do we need 2 commercial breaks in a main event with 8 guys in it that we all want to see? Anyway, back from the break, both men are looking for tag. Jimmy tags in and stops Riddle from making a hot tag. Lays in a double axe handle on the Riddle. Gets a 2 count out of that. Uso then nails Riddle in the jaw. Jey Uso then tags in, stomps Riddle and wears him down. Tags Jimmy back in. Jimmy goes to take out the faces. This allows Riddle to hit a knee, crawl to the corner. Jimmy tries to hit a back suplex, but Riddle flips out of it, nails him in the face with another knee. Riddle goes for the hot tag, but Rollins comes around and pulls Orton down. Riddle gets dragged to the heel corner for Owens to hit a giant, huge senton bomb on him. This only gets a near fall. Riddle then starts to fight back with some strikes, eats an enziguri, but it knocks him right into Orton, who hits the blind tag. Jay's celebrating so he doesn't realize that Orton's the legal man. Orton comes in, does his typical snap body slams and lariats, wipes out all the heels, goes for a draping DDT, but Jimmy pulls him out, tries to put him through the announce table, but Orton says, fuck that. He reverses it, sends Jimmy, Rollins, and Owens all onto the announce table with the back suplex. Orton gets himself back into the ring where Jay is waiting for him. He plants him with the draping DDT. Then he starts to look for an RKO, but Seth comes in and stops him. Rhodes comes in, hits a disaster kick on Rollins. Orton then RKOs Rollins. Ezekiel kicks Owens right into Orton. Orton nails an RKO on him. Riddle and Orton then hit an assisted pop-up RKO on Jimmy Uso. Jey Uso's up at the top rope to try to break things up, and Orton hits a midair RKO on him and pins him for the 1-2-3. Brilliant RKOs here. 4 RKOs to end it. What a better way to end the night of Randy Orton's 20-year anniversary and to have him RKO everybody in the ring, especially in unique fashion. The one that he did to Jay coming off the top rope and the assisted one with Riddle was great. Great way to send the crowd home happy. Commentary was putting over EdgeRkbro as the next unified tag champions, but Corey Graves was saying not that the Usos have anything to do with it. I think the work by the Usos and EdgeRkbro was outstanding in this match. The other guys in the match did a great job as well. In the end, it means nothing of consequence for this match, but having these 8 in the main event makes it a star power match, gives interaction between 3 ongoing feuds, and with that allows more time for other feuds to develop in the show, which we all know needs to happen. A lot happened tonight. We had a lot to talk about. There's a lot more topics that I'm going to get to in my update shows. Just wanted to get some raw news out to you guys tonight. Really appreciate you being with me. Stayed up late to do this for you guys, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Remember to follow us on Twitter at BeyondMattWWE. Subscribe to us on all podcast platforms. Beyond the Mat. And we will be back midweek for a midweek review. We will be back on Friday for Friday Night SmackDown. And then we'll be back on the weekend again for the weekend review. If you have a question that you would like us to address, please email me at matt@beyondthemat.com. And that's pretty much all I got for you guys today. Don't forget, we got bonus content coming out soon. Survivor Series 98, Royal Rumble 99, Backlash 2000 are all projects that we're working on right now. Going to get them out to you guys as soon as possible. I'm also working on some new graphics and some other new exciting things that'll be good for you guys. Take care. Have a great night. Everybody hang in there. Have a great rest of your week. I'm going to get on out of here now. Take it easy, guys. Thanks for listening.